Hey everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zolda, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. And we've got WISPR Systems in the house. John McArthur is with us here today as we continue a great month dedicated to the theme of complex ops, some of which you just saw in that short video. So John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dawn. It's wonderful to be speaking with you again and excited to have this conversation with you.
We were just talking before the show started, and this was so long in the making. I've seen WISPR Systems at a couple of shows over the last few years. We reconnected at Geo Week back in February, and he's finally here. So I'm really excited. So much has actually happened in your company since February, since we talked in person. But before we get to all of that, John, the first thing I want to make sure that we do is introduce you to our audience. So tell everybody a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I've actually come with 2 finance degrees and started my career in like the insurance and financial planning sales roles. So that's a great place to cut your teeth in sales. And so did that for about 3 years. And then I had an opportunity to join my first startup, which was a vodka company, which when you're in your early 20s, so it's a pretty fun thing to do. So, did that for about 3 years and did all the business development there. Was involved in several capital campaigns and kind of cut my teeth with some fundraising and things like that. So really fun there. And then ended up at another startup in the ag space, multi-billion-dollar tech ag company, before I got pulled over into WISPR Systems here. So really been in this exciting startup world really my whole career, and this was just an incredible opportunity that came across my desk. And I'm not a traditional drone person. I'm not a surveyor, mapper, civil engineer, anything like that. But I really enjoy learning new things. I've got a passion for trying to problem solve, and so it was a really good opportunity. I've had a blast in my 2.5 years I've been here.
Awesome. Well, clearly you bring a really unique perspective. I mean, from insurance to vodka to agriculture and now to WISPR Systems. So tell everybody about WISPR Systems and how you got involved in it.
Sure. So we have a great story. Like I always, it's truly the American dream. So our 2 founders were they were buddies growing up in I think they were in Boy Scouts together. When they were in first grade, and they ended up at Mississippi State together in electrical engineering school. And one of their professors was getting very into drones, and this was in about 2015, so it was really just starting to pick up. And he created some custom payloads, and he needed drones to fly these custom payloads in order to get the data collected so he can get tenure. It was all about his project to get tenure. And the school gave him a $20,000 budget to build 3 drones, which back then is not a lot of money to procure drones or build drones or anything like that. And Connor Ferguson, our co-founder and CTO, had been building drones recreationally. Just brilliant guy, understands software, hardware, the whole thing, and told his professor, "Hey, I know how to do this. Give me and showed him, hey, I'm gonna build you a quad, a hex, and an octocopter that's going to carry these different payloads for you. This is how they all work. I can write the software for the mission planning, all this stuff." Convinced his professor to give him the budget, so he built these first 3 drones. They're actually still in use down at Mississippi State.
Wow.
Which is pretty neat. So went and saw those when I first started. But then those guys got a reputation on campus for being able to build cheap, reliable drones. And so a bunch of other professors were pulling them on special projects and getting them to build drones. Then the Entrepreneurial Center gets wind of it and approaches them and says, "Hey guys, this is a business if you want it to be." And they said, "Yeah, we do want it to be." So they introduced them to the Bulldog Angel Network, which is Shark Tank for Mississippi State students.
Cool. I love that name.
Yeah. If you've got a legit business, there's a couple gatekeepers you have to get through in order to be able to pitch to the network. But once you get your business plan in place, you get your pitch down, you get to Shark Tank style via Zoom pitch your company to 40 or 50 successful alums at Mississippi State, and they choose to fund you or not. And so that's how we got our original funding. Our board member is still created of those uh, Bulldog Angel Network members, and they've really helped a young company avoid some of the early pitfalls that sometimes the only way to learn those things is through experience. And
Right.
luckily, our board has a lot of experience and has been able to guide us um, in some tough times that are just inherent going to be there when you're starting a company as complex as a drone manufacturer.
Well, what a really interesting story, and I love this Bulldog Network and how the alumni at Mississippi State lift up the students to become entrepreneurs like this. So the initial 3 drones that your founders made were really focused for R&D for that one professor, as you mentioned. Once they started pitching these entrepreneurs, right, and kind of created the company, what was the main problem that they were trying to solve? In other words, what was the target market they were going at as they were pitching these angel investors? Like, hey, we can build drones. We've built them. We're looking to do X now. What was that X?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it kind of helps describe the name of our company. A lot of people hear WISPR and they're like, "Oh, you've got a quiet drone." And it's like, no,
Yeah, yeah.
that's not where the WISPR came from at all.
Although it's not a bad thing for people to think, right?
It's not a bad thing, but if you're expecting a quiet drone when we fly, no, you're gonna be a little bit upset. But so the WISP in WISPR stands for Wireless Internet Service Provider, which was our original target market. So Connor, before he went to college, uh, owned a WISP network in North Mississippi. He and his father owned it together, and Connor was personally climbing old water towers or cell phone towers and installing internet in rural America, and then going door to door to sell it.
Oh,
And
wow.
the only way to know how high you need to put that antenna and then what direction you need to face it in order to receive the best signal is to actually physically take an antenna up there to do it. And so you have to climb up there with the antenna, or you have to have a bucket truck that can take you up there and for you to get that signal. And Connor,
Either way, dangerous. Yeah.
yeah, dangerous. I mean, there's some stories about these old water towers collapsing while people are climbing them.
Oh my gosh.
It's the summers in Mississippi. That's not fun work. It's pretty
Yeah,
hot down
no
here. So
doubt.
so Connor says he's like a little bit out of laziness. I thought, how about I just put this antenna on a drone? I can write software that the drone will pause when it finds the highest signal strength, and then rotate to figure out the exact azimuth it needs to be, and then it'll log that data, and then I know exactly how high I need to build this tower, or where I need to put it on the tower, and the direction I need to face it. And so that was the original business plan, was to eliminate bucket trucks, turn 2-person jobs into 1-person jobs, get people off of those towers. A lot of the same bonuses to any kind of drone work with safety and just efficiency that drones can bring to it was kind of what Connor's original plan was. So Connor just put an R on the WISP, Wireless Internet Service Provider, to create WISPR. And so that was the original business plan. 2020 hits, and no one is eliminating payroll. You're getting paid to keep headcount, and so the disruption that we were hoping to bring to the WISP industry got stunted a little bit. But that was never going to be where we stayed, and so we used 2020 as kind of a springboard to get to the next phase of what we wanted to do as a company, which was to get into the bigger markets, which is the surveying, mapping, inspection, and eventually public safety. And so at around 2021, when I joined, it was time to start. We went through a little bit of a rebrand to get a little less totally focused on this RF WISP space, and just broaden our brand to encompass all the other things, but with a really big focus on that surveying and mapping space first, because we found that that's just about the hardest market to support, because it's just so very technical. The people that you're dealing with, the data that you're collecting, I mean, we're talking centimeters that matter, and timing GPS and all these different technical things that go into it. We thought that if we could build our brand and really plant our flag in this surveying and mapping space and be the most reliable, easiest to use workflow, that we'd have a really good shot at grabbing a foothold and can grow our brand exponentially based off of that.
Awesome. Well, what a great journey it's been indeed. And it's, I guess WISPR and P3 Tech have a lot in common. I also kind of kicked off my business in earnest, I'll call it, in 2020, the year that wasn't.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting time, but really a good time to kind of sit back, really learn a lot, watch what's happening. And in WISPR's case, obviously they hired you the following year, just kind of continue growing that those markets that you were looking at, and also the different vehicles and let's just call them ecosystem pieces and parts of those vehicles to do all these different things. So, by the way, everybody, I want to remind you, we are live. So, we know you're out there. So just drop a little note in the chat, say hello, tell us where you're from, ask John some questions, because if you haven't seen these drones up close and in person, hopefully you will soon. But we're going to show you some pictures here. We're going to talk more about them. And first thing I want to do, John, is talk a little bit about the Ranger Pro series. So tell us what this is, and why the Ranger Pro series. Like, what were the target markets you were looking to do with that?
Sure. So the Ranger Pro actually is the child of some previous drones that we had that were very specific for that WISP space. So these antennas aren't a very small form factor, so you needed kind of a wider wheelbase in order to carry the antennas required to do that job. And so we've been working on a frame that is similar to the Ranger Pro for probably 5 years. And what we did was we just kept building a more robust drone, adding ports that will enable us to be able to integrate a wider range of payloads. And so the idea with the Ranger Pro is to keep it as open-ended as possible. We're not in payload manufacturing, and we always want to be able to integrate the newest and best technology that comes to market. And that's something that we've carried on even with the Sky Scout that we'll get into later. But really, the Ranger Pro was built for that. We wanted a rugged, reliable, American-made drone that can do a handful of different applications. And so it started with that WISP space, and then the next thing that we really jumped into was LiDAR. And then now we've gotten into, obviously, photogrammetry was almost in parallel to LiDAR. Once you get into that surveying and mapping world, you really need to be experts in both. And then once we had a handle on those, we got into some of these specialty sensors like methane detection. You saw it in the video earlier, ground penetrating radar, magnetometers, bathymetry, for water mapping. And so that's really where the Ranger lives, and it's been our flagship model, since I've been here. Brought the Sky Scout out a few months ago, but the Ranger really lives in that LiDAR and specialty sensor space currently. It's got a 7-pound payload capacity, and again, ports on the outside for easy payload integration. And as newer and newer sensors come out, again, we want to be able to get them on our drone and out to our customers.
So the Sky Scout, is that kind of a spin-off of the Ranger Pro? And tell us how it's different.
Sure. So the Sky Scout begins in that it's just much smaller. So that is a 13 by 5 by 7 compact little drone. So it's really a shrunken down version of the Ranger Pro. But what we wanted to do with the Sky Scout, not only make a small form factor, but we just wanted to streamline the entire process. So the downside to the Ranger Pro is that it does have cables that are external and to power gimbals and all that. And if there's an external cable, there's something that can break out in the field, and there's a call you get, hey, this cable just broke, what do I do? It's like there's not really a quick solution sometimes. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to streamline the workflow as best we could. And it's the Sky Scout's mainly for camera payloads. We can carry LiDAR on there as well, but it's mainly for camera workflows. And so we worked with Grimsey, which we'll get into that partnership here in a little bit, but we worked with them to create a quick attach. So power and data runs through that quick attach for all of our camera payloads. So there are no wires. So it's kind of plug and play with the camera. And then we want to do the same thing with the batteries. So that's kind of the difference between the two, is that Sky Scout is very streamlined for these mapping and inspection use cases, where the Ranger Pro, if you're putting cameras on there, there are some wires, external wires that you will need to connect, but it's really by design. So the Ranger Pro can be the easy payload integration, heavier payloads.
Got it. And the Sky Scout is much more compact and versatile. I think we have another image here with the, there we go. This like, it's not folded up here, so you get to kind of see what it looks like, what it would look like right before it flies. So target markets for this, you mentioned kind of photogrammetry. You put LiDAR cameras on this thing, bathymetry. So this is primarily surveying, mapping. But you also mentioned, John, you were looking at, the public safety market. Is that with the Sky Scout? Is that what you were thinking? And if so, like, why do you believe this drone lends itself to that particular market?
I would say the inspection and public safety markets are going to be much more in play with us with Sky Scout than they were with the Ranger Pro. People in both of those industries are on the move. They need portability. They need, quick setups, both of them. And that's really what you get with the Sky Scout. We get longer flight times. So we're flying between 26 and 30 minutes, depending on conditions with the Sky Scout. And that is to our 25% battery failsafe. That's not at sea level flying to zero battery with zero payload on. That is with our payloads flying to our failsafe. So you're getting, really great flight time with that. The setup is very easy. The smart batteries make life easier. And so for the public safety and inspection folks, when you're on the go, you're moving around, you need small form factor. You have to have that portability, and that's what we've got with the Sky Scout. And again, we've got some of the best sensors on the market, regardless of company. And we're really proud of our sensor line and the partners that we've made there. And so we've got what we believe is kind of the best drone on the market for the inspection use case. And then we're going to get a little bit more into public safety later this year. There's some software that we still need to become compatible with to really support that industry. But the Sky Scout will bring us in there because we've got the great sensors, we've got the easy workflow, and then the inspection world we really like where we're positioned there as well.
Well, and you mentioned these smart Sky Scout smart batteries. Tell us a little bit about those, because this is kind of the relevant to the keeping these drones flying and kind of that portability of the system. Tell us about your smart batteries.
Yes, batteries in drones, that's like the biggest headache out there is battery maintenance and
exactly
dealing with all that. And so we wanted to bring a battery to market that, obviously is specific for our system, but we're able to track and support track maintenance cycles, all of that. So we created the BMS, the battery management system that's inside this battery.
Okay.
So there's one button on top. It's as easy as I think that you could possibly make a battery. So when you need to charge them, you just plug them in. The BMS tells the battery charger exactly what to do. You get battery readouts on the health. We're bringing a cloud to market here within the next month. You'll be hearing a lot more of that in about a month's time, but we're gonna be able to track all the batteries inside of that cloud, just so you know your battery health, which batteries are actually paired together, all those type things, just to, again, make that the biggest headache in drones less of a headache.
That's great. And you mentioned the cloud, that brings to mind software, and that's something that one of your founders has been involved in from the very beginning in drones, creating not only the hardware and the systems, but the proprietary software that goes along with them, including for complex operations. When you think about the WISP, the wireless internet service provider use case you mentioned, where it's like, oh, we'll have an algorithm to fly it up there and it'll figure out where the signal is the strongest. That kind of software, intelligent software, is very complex. Tell us about what you have inside the Sky Scout from a software perspective that enables it to do complex operations like inspections, because those are not simple.
No, they're not. And one thing that is an advantage of ours is our deep understanding of the radio frequency space. So when you're doing these inspections, you're dealing with really powerful antennas that can blow out your GPS or blow out your signal, and you get drones that start doing the toilet bowl and then end up crashing into stuff.
Oh my gosh. I never, honestly, I didn't even think about that, John. Like,
Oh yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah.
it's a thing. So that's EMI, electromagnetic interference, and we spent the early stages of our company trying to solve for that, because if what we're going to do is be in this RF space, we really need to understand how to combat that. Like, we have toilet bowled plenty of drones in the testing. If you're not a real drone manufacturer, that and crash, a handful of drones, and we have testing the best way to handle EMI, since our plan was to be around these towers.
Yeah.
So what we have is we have an airplane grade shielding inside of our drones that absorbs and dissipates EMI rather than reflects it, or just doesn't do anything at all, and you just hope for the best. So when you're trying to reflect EMI, you can't always know where you're reflecting it to, and oftentimes you end up just bouncing it around inside your electronics, and you end up in that crash pattern of the toilet. So that is one thing that we have going for us in this inspection space around these towers. 3D modeling, plus just we still can put PCI scanners and spectrum analyzers on our drones to do that type of work, and we do interference hunting on our Ranger Pro still to this day with some customers. So that is a very complex operation when you're trying to do drone-based interference hunting. I get way over my skis talking to those folks that are doing that. They are definitely experts in their field, and it's interesting to learn about all that. But it's a big problem in the cell phone world, is getting that interference, and a lot of times it ends up being a church somewhere doesn't know how to wire their speakers, and it's blowing out cell phone signal for 20 blocks, and you have to go find it, and it ends up in a closet in a church. But the easiest way to do it is with a drone, and so we've got customers out there doing that. But getting back to
I honestly, I never even heard of that, and to be able to do that with a drone, John, is not just relevant, I think, to whatever customers you're having, like if it's a mobile communications company as an example. My mind goes right to the DoD and the military space, because I mean, you and I have been watching, and the world has been watching, right? Electronic warfare is the name of the game right now, and to be able to have a drone that's resilient against that not only is resilient against it, but can actually hunt it down. My friend, you and I need to talk after this and figure out a way to get you into that space, because even if it's just like the software or the shell, as you said, the casing that you guys have crafted in these drones, my guess is DIU would be highly interested in something like this. But that is amazing. So you've got this resilience against electromagnetic interference, but you also have, like you kind of alluded to, there's algorithms on board for advanced navigation and things like that. Walk us through some of these features, because I think it's really important to understand the high levels of engineering that have gone into this drone.
And I'll try not to talk too much about it, because I'm not the engineer. I'll get my
sure,
or say something that's inaccurate. But it is very complex when you're trying to I'm thinking more into the surveying mapping space, and just timing up GPS so you're getting centimeter level ground sampling distance on your photogrammetry and the maps that you're creating. And I don't do that work. I know it's complex. I've been in the meetings where I'm just like, I don't even know what these people are talking about at this point. But luckily, our supply chain is pretty incredible. A lot of what we get is from the Q Pilot folks down in Australia, and Philip, the guy that runs that, is a genius in his own right, and I think he's single-handedly propping up a good portion of the American drone space. So shout out to those guys. But they've made it, I think, as easy as possible to at least get started and get really robust great technology at an affordable price to the market. And then what makes us special is the software that we put on top of all of that to really make it our own and to streamline it. So when I got the call, so one of the board members at the Bulldog Angel Network I've known for 15 years or something like that. And he kind of called me out of the blue and just said, "Hey, how's everything going?" I'm like, "Everything's good." He's like, "Well, I want to run something by you. I've got a drone company." I'm like, "That's interesting." He's like, and we're finally ready to scale. Are you interested? I was like, "Sure, let's talk." And so he's like, "All right." We sat down. He's like, "We're a software company that builds drones for specific applications." I'm like, "Seems like we're a drone manufacturer. I don't know what you're talking about." I took the job anyway, but and for about 6 months, I still thought he was wrong, or I didn't fully understand what he meant by that. But making drones is very complicated. I mean, there's a lot of parts, a lot that goes into it, a lot that you have to understand about aerodynamics, power consumption, lift, thrust, all of these different things, RF, all of that. And there are players out there that can get drones up into the sky, but what really separates you is that software space. And so that's what he meant by we're a software company that builds drones for specific applications. And so you have to have quality hardware. There's no doubt about it. But what separates us from our competition is that software piece. And what we're always trying to do, and our tagline is powered to the pro. And what power to the pro means is we're trying to empower our customers to do their best work. They don't care about the drone. They don't really care about the sensor. They care about the data. And so we want to provide them the drone, the sensor, and the software, so getting that data is as easy as possible. They don't have to worry about the drone or the sensor. Go get the data, get it to whoever needs it, so they can make a decision. And so that's how we look at everything. How easy can we make it for somebody to do their job? And it starts, obviously, you have to have reliable hardware, and then how easy can you make the software, and then do we have the best quality sensors to pair up with all of that? So that's how we focus everything, is kind of in that mind frame. And we distill down our decisions on which payloads we're getting, what we need to do in mission planning, what we can do building fail safes. So with the Ranger Pro, we monitor vibrations in the motors, and we know 12 flights before a motor can go bad, and we can alert you to that based off some AI and some just machine learning that we're able to put into it. So there's things like that we're always just trying to look at, is how safe, how easy can we make it for people to go do their job.
Well, and the smart battery, I think, is one example. I think another is the fact that you made the sensor suite that you're working with. The ecosystem of sensor companies very much plug and play with your system to tailor it to those needs, to customize it for those pros out there that are using this drone. So I know you're working with a lot of sensor companies. I want to make sure we definitely hit Grimsey, because that's a more recent one. And tell us a little bit about the uniqueness of the Grimsey payloads, and why you think it's so important and beneficial to the pros out there that use your drones.
Sure. So Grimsey, arguably the best gimbal manufacturers in the world. That is what they're known for, and they just started getting into sensor manufacturing. So they're pairing up, Sony and FLIR sensors with their gimbals. So here's something that we've learned very, very well, is that your data is only going to be as good as your drone. So your drone needs to limit vibrations, needs to fly, consistent pattern. And then you need to have a really good sensor, but what connects the sensor to the drone is that gimbal. And if that full integration isn't there, your data quality will suffer. And so what we wanted to do is we went to Grimsey and said, "Hey, we're building Sky Scout, and we need this suite of payloads. Here's what we're looking for." And they had already been working on a couple of payloads on their own. We'd been consulting with them kind of on the side, just kind of being a feedback loop for them and a soundboard as far as what people are looking for in the inspection space.
Yeah.
And so that Grimsey VO that came out, we've been talking to them about it for 2 years probably. And so the VO is a great inspection camera. On one side, you've got a It's a Sony block camera that's got 30-time optical zoom with super resolution. It's got some digital zoom for a combined 240-time hybrid zoom, which is great inspection camera, RGB there. Shoots 4K video. That's actually the exact same sensor that is the Zeo, but the Veo has a thermal built into it. So
Oh,
the Veo
wow. Okay.
is a dual sensor. So on the Veo, you've got that same Zeo for the RGB, and then on the thermal side, you have a FLIR boson, and later this year it'll be a FLIR boson plus 640 by 512 radiometric, 8 times digital zoom, complete with the laser rangefinder. So awesome little package. It's coming out about $10,000 less than some competing, NDAA compliant inspection payloads there. So awesome camera, awesome sensor there for public safety and inspection. The Zeo, even more affordable if you just need the RGB side. But then, so those are inspection payloads. And we knew they were coming to market, and we knew that the Sky Scout was going to fit in that inspection vertical. And we're like, well, we need something for our mapping folks. And what we have heard the market, complain about is you need at least a 1-inch CMOS sensor, a mechanical shutter, not a rolling shutter, for a mapping camera, and as many megapixels as you can get. And so we worked with them on a 24 megapixel mapping payload. So it's 24 megapixels mechanical shutter, 1-inch CMOS sensor, 16 millimeter lens, custom Pixie SC for Sky Scout, gimbal from Guernsey. So they made a custom gimbal for this mapping camera. It's $3,300, which is about as affordable of a sensor of that quality as I think anybody can make. So really proud to get that going. And then we worked with them on the new Sony ILX LR1. And so that's Sony's A7R4 that they built specifically for drones, and have worked directly with Sony on some of that as well, but built the custom gimbal for that as well called the Pixie LR Sport. And so, now we've got a super high quality drone, very low vibrations, easy workflow as far as setting it up, where the portability is there. And now we've got an incredible sensor lineup. Again, no one's got a better sensor lineup than we do with this drone, matched with the best gimbals in the business with Guernsey. So really proud of that partnership. And, they've come to visit us in Mississippi probably 4 or 5 times, and very appreciative of their effort, bringing this all to market, and their level of collaboration with us. So it's exciting to be able to have a drone of that form factor, but also have interchangeable payloads. No one's ever done that before, so excited.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you have other payloads too. I mean, you mentioned LiDAR more than once, and we know how critical that is in the surveying and mapping area. Tell us a little bit about the LiDAR that you're working with, and kind of the resolutions and kind of the payloads. Here we have an image coming up here.
Sure. So this is a XT32 M2X from Inertial Labs. So Inertial Labs is a company based in Virginia, and we work with a lot of different LiDAR companies. So we're working with the GeoQs, the Phoenix LiDARs, the LiDAR USAs. I'm sure I've missed a few. Yellow Scans. So we work with all these different groups. Inertial Labs is the one we've just kind of been working with the longest. And so the first thing that we're going to get onto the Sky Scout is this Hesai M2X, but without a camera, just due to weight limitations. The Ranger Pro, we can carry a whole suite of LiDAR units up to the Regal mini buxes. And so we really try to have different sensors at different price points for our different customers out there in the market. So, that's, again, with the Ranger, very easy to integrate. You just have to mount it and power it. And one thing that we like to do as well is in our mission planning, we plan the LiDAR calibration pattern. So these LiDARs all have IMUs that need to be calibrated for accuracy before flight. And there's different patterns depending on the IMU. Some patterns are figure eights. Some patterns are J hooks. Some are, just straight ahead 10 meters a second for 10 seconds and then straight back. we put that into the software. So that's just one less thing that you have to worry about. Did I calibrate this right flying manually? That's not something we want people to worry about. So we're just like, let the drone do the work. We build that into the mission planning.
No.
So again, it's as easy as it can be to plan your mission. You don't have to worry about the calibration. The drone's going to handle all that.
Yeah, IMUs are inertial measurement units. I had the fun, I'll call it the very fun opportunity to fly in the back of an L-39 Czechoslovakian fighter jet with some hexagon IMUs that they were testing as part of their testing process, doing barrel rolls over the Gulf of Mexico, over the
Okay.
ocean. Yeah, no joke. Fun fact, I did not puke. I did not puke, but it was pretty brutal. But that's what IMUs do, right? They kind of keep the balance on the vehicle, and they're so key to be properly calibrated, which is why they go through extensive testing. And the fact that you can, with your drones and your software, work with IMU companies to figure out, all right, for this particular application and this particular flight path or flight pattern, this is what we need to do to make sure it's all calibrated, and the pilot doesn't have to worry about that, or the operator. That's so key, right? To the less is more when it comes to flying, I think, and when it comes to collecting data. And I think as we move forward in this industry, John, and we see it continue to mature and grow even more and more professional, like we've seen, I think, leaps and bounds in professionalism over the last couple of years, and more autonomy and automation in these vehicles. It's just going to be a whole different skill set needed, right? But that skill set, in your case, won't have to be like, okay, calibrating the IMU. It's going to be something different than that. So I love that you guys are ahead of that. What I also thought was really cool in your video was the bathymetric application. I saw, I think it was the Sky Scout, flying over the water with this thing hanging down, like dipping into the water. Tell us a little bit about that, because you guys have a really unique partnership for the underwater mapping applications. I love those. I just think they're so unique. And people don't talk about those often. Is when people think about mapping and surveying, they just think about land. But our planet is covered with a lot of water, and knowing what's under there is important for a lot of different industries. So what sensors are you using for that? How does that work?
Sure. So all those specialty sensors are actually on the Ranger Pro. They're, that's a 6-pound payload dangling off of a drone going over the water. I mean, that's a complex operation.
Yeah, I mean, just the drag, because it was like literally in the water, right?
Yeah, it has to stay in the water. So our partner for all that is SPH Engineering out of Latvia. A lot of people just know them as UGCS. So UGCS is their software side. SPH Engineering is the parent company that also sells the hardware. So they've also been just an incredible partner of ours, and are super helpful all the time getting these really specialty payloads integrated. And we've seen a really big uptick this year in specialty sensor adoption. So our two biggest sellers are the methane detector and then the bathymetry sensor that you're talking about right now. So that bathymetry sensor, we have a radar altimeter that tells the drone how high above the water it needs to be in order to keep that transducer. So it's a dual frequency echo sounder. So it's basically doing sonar. And you have to keep it in the water in order to have it working properly. And so we use that radar altimeter to keep our height. And then you just fly your regular, lawnmower pattern mapping mission in order to do that map. So that's an interesting one. The biggest users of that one are folks at mines, actually, that have these retention ponds. And they need to know how much water is actually in this, because you can't get a boat to it.
Yeah,
it's not made for that. And so how am I supposed to do that without something like this? And so that's picking up.
So I'm just curious if why and we'll talk about your methane sensor, because I just came from the Energy Drone Robotics Coalition Summit, and that's obviously a very big thing. It's a compliance issue. This isn't something that's nice to do. In some respects, some missions are, but methane is not one of those.
Right.
So Why do you think you're seeing an uptake in this kind of methane and bathymetry, bathymetric measurement space?
So on the methane side specifically, I mean, we have a very pro-green administration right now. And
Mm.
so the EPA can monitor, my specific use case that I'm talking about right now is for landfills, actually.
Oh, wow.
So we're at a landfill right now, training a group on this sensor. But what they do at landfills is they have some satellite. The EPA has public information, but it's a satellite network that monitors landfills and is looking for plumes that are over the ppm, particles per million limit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they can show up to your landfill and say, on this day, you had a plume over the threshold. What did you do about it?
And this is methane we're talking about.
This is methane.
This
They're
isn't an energy sector.
monitoring.
You're just talking about landfills that are like emanating methane from
Yes.
them, which is not something I even realized, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Wow, that's insane. So that makes sense that because now that is a compliance issue also, and the EPA is tracking that people are like, we better get on top of this.
They
No
show
pun
up
intended.
and they can write you a fine per day. It's like a $10,000 fine per day that you did not take action and you were over limit. And so they can show up and fine you for 30, 40, 50 days if they wanted to. And so there's a big fear at these landmines that they're coming. And so currently the only way to do it, if you're not using a drone, is these hand sniffers, and you just have to have somebody walking your entire, I mean, these are, hundreds of acres.
Yeah.
And so that's tough.
It's just not practical. It's not practical, like you said, depending on where this thing is. Like if we were in Mississippi, not fun because the weather and what you're dealing with at that time.
Yeah, today down in Louisiana, and it's probably 105-degree heat index.
Good Lord.
You just can't have people marching around.
No, and not every day. To have robots, drones.
And this work needs to be done every single day. So what this laser, the sensor is called the Laser Falcon. So what the Laser Falcon does is it is qualitative data, not quantitative, but it will find the plumes. It'll find that anomaly, and you can see the data in real time, exactly where it is. And so now we're flying. You're covering so much more land without having to send somebody on foot.
Yeah.
Find out where the leak is, and then you can send your hand sniffer out there and quantify what the ppm is, and you might need to patch the seal that's emitting it, or at least where it is, and you can say that you recognize it and you took action.
Yeah, that's key. Wow. And look, administrations aside, we're talking about our climate, we're talking about our ability to breathe, and these are greenhouse gases are very
sure. Yes.
So it's such a great use case. All the time, anytime. I love that you're able to do that. John, I knew our time was going to fly, and we have about 1 minute left. And so I know you have so much more coming down the pike. You mentioned, cloud native applications coming in the future. So let's use this time. I'm going to cede the floor to you. Any announcements, any concluding remarks? And please, please, please make sure you tell folks how they can reach you and find you.
Yeah, we're easy to find on all social medias under WISPR Systems. That's the best place to interact with us and see what we've got coming up. I'm easy to get in touch with, McArthur at whispersystems.com. Send me an email whenever. Or if you fill out any of the forms on our website, they pretty much come to me, and I'm happy to talk to you about anything going on. But really, the rest of this year is going to be focused on getting Sky Scout out, getting there's a couple new payloads coming. There's more partnerships, and that's really the strength of our company is our ability to partner with some of these other groups out there to really bring these full solutions to market. And so be on the lookout for some big partnership updates coming, some new sensors, and then I hope everyone is going to see a Sky Scout in their backyard. When I say backyard, I mean in their area, not their actual backyard. By the end of this year, we're excited about the rollout of that. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was really in education. I learned several things along the way, and I've seen your Sky Scout in person. And where's the next show, John, where maybe that people can touch and feel it if it's not quote unquote in their backyard?
So there'll be some Sky Scouts at Commercial UAV Expo. We're
Okay.
not in the booth, but we'll be there to support our distributor network that will have some. And so if anybody wants to see me out in Vegas, let's do it, Dawn. I'm sure you'll be there. We should definitely grab a drink or a coffee or something.
Well, that's a great segue, everybody. Mark your calendars now. Fly in on Labor Day. We're doing our 4th annual Flash Mob Networking Happy Hour the night before Commercial UAV kicks off. So mark your calendars now. It'll be 7 to 9, location TBD, but I have a good idea. Last year was quite a good time. So hope to see everybody there, including you, John, and we will absolutely tip a glass. But in the meantime, have a great rest of your summer, and everybody else, thanks for watching. We are out here.